Do you have a queen?
Not one queen, no more than one queen.
Is he entitled to more than one queen?
Yeah, he's entitled to all the queens.
After 3 decades, Rita Marley has opened up and shared some raw truths about being married to the reggae legend, Bob Marley. Forget the sunshine and good vibes you might expect, because this is not your typical love story. You're in the right place if you've ever wondered what happened behind the scenes with this legendary couple. Let's dive into Rita's revelation and discover what life was like with the King of Reggae. Bob and Rita Marley, early life. Being married to a man who was becoming an international superstar was challenging for Rita. While Bob Marley's music spread messages of love, hope, and unity worldwide, his private life was much more complicated and filled with struggles that most people never saw. Rita eventually shared the highs and lows of their marriage, including the emotional struggles, the pressure of being famous, and how it affected their relationship. She described Bob as a passionate man, but also someone with many complexities. Carrying the weight of being a global icon was tough on him, and those challenges naturally impacted the people closest to him. Rita had to balance standing by Bob's dreams and staying true to herself. She supported him as he toured the world and became a reggae legend, often putting aside her needs to hold their family together. She worked hard to keep their family steady during all the chaos. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but Rita stayed strong and graceful through everything. While fans remember Bob Marley as a cultural icon, Rita's story gave a deeper look at the man behind the music. Her honesty offered a complete picture of Bob that fans rarely hear about. Bob Marley's name is known worldwide, but many people don't know where he came from. His story begins far from the bright lights, in a small farming community in Jamaica. Bob was born on February 6, 1945, in 9 Mile, a quiet village in St. Anne Parish. His father, Norval Sinclair Marley, was a white Jamaican who called himself captain, even though he only held the rank of private in the British Army. Norval Marley was overseeing land for war veterans when he met and married Cedella Malcolm, a young Afro-Jamaican woman who was just 18 at the time. Their relationship came with a significant age gap. Norval was around 64 years old when Bob was born. Even though Norval was Bob's father, he was rarely present. He offered little support and passed away when Bob was only 10 years old, leaving Cedella to raise their son on her own. There's an interesting story behind Bob's name. Some sources say he was originally named Nisa Robert Marley, but when he went to get his passport, an official reportedly thought Nisa sounded too much like a girl's name and switched his first and middle names. That's how he became known to the world as Robert Nisa Marley. Music ran deep in Bob's family. His grandfather on his mother's side, Omariah, was known in his village as a Mile. Mile was tied to spiritual and musical traditions in Jamaican culture, which likely planted the early seeds of Bob's connection to music. Bob became close friends with Neville Livingston as a boy, who later became famous as Bunny Wailer. They met while attending Stephanie Primary and Junior High School in 9 Mile and started making music together shortly after. When Bob was 12, he and his mother moved to Trenchtown, a rough but lively neighborhood in Kingston known for its music scene. There, Bob and Bunny lived in the same house, which helped them dive even deeper into creating music. They soaked in the latest sounds, such as ska and American rhythm and blues, coming in through Jamaican radio. Eventually, they teamed up with Peter Tosh and started a vocal group. After trying out a few names, they settled on the Wailers. Initially, Bob and his friends weren't focused on playing instruments. Instead, they worked hard to perfect their vocal harmonies. That's when Joe Higgs, a popular local musician, spotted their potential and decided to mentor them. He taught Bob how to play the guitar and helped the group sharpen their singing skills. This guidance became a vital stepping stone in Bob's journey toward becoming a musician. Bob's life took a new turn on the family front when his mother remarried Edward Booker, an American civil servant. This marriage brought 2 half-brothers into Bob's life, Richard and Anthony, expanding his family circle. From growing up in a quiet Jamaican village to navigating the tough streets of Trenchtown, Bob Marley's early years were full of influences and moments that helped shape him into the global music icon he became. Now, moving on to Rita's early life, most people know her as Bob Marley's wife, but her story goes way beyond that. Rita's birthplace isn't as straightforward as many might assume. Some people said Rita was born in Santiago de Cuba, but records found by her mother-in-law told a different story. Rita was born in Jamaica, not Cuba. This little detail caused complications when she applied for refugee status in the United States. In a 1981 interview, Rita admitted she wasn't entirely sure where she was born. She had always heard the Cuba story, but never confirmed it herself. No matter the truth, Rita's childhood was firmly rooted in Jamaica. After her parents separated, her Aunt Viola took over, raising her in the heart of Trenchtown, Kingston. In this environment, surrounded by the everyday sounds and rhythms of reggae, Rita's love for music grew before she became famous worldwide as Bob Marley's partner. Rita was already making a name for herself in Jamaica's music scene. She helped form the Soulettes, a vocal group that included her cousin Constantine Walker and Marlene G. Ford. Together, they created music that mixed the smooth grooves of rocksteady with soulful harmonies. The Soulettes weren't just popular locally, they released several memorable songs like Time for Everything, Turn, which was a cover of Pete Seeger's folk classic, and A Day Dayon Dem. They also worked with the Wailers, lending their voices to tracks such as Friends and Lovers, One More Chance, and That Ain't Right. Rita joined forces with Bunny Wailer for a duet called Bless You, which later appeared on the Lovers and Friends album. Her musical roots ran deep, and her voice carried the spirit of Trenchtown. Her early career was never just a warm-up to living in Bob Marley's shadow. It was a solid foundation all on its own. Through her work with the Soulettes, Rita showed off her talent and secured her place within Jamaica's lively music scene. Beyond her music, Rita's story was one of resilience and adaptability. Growing up in the community where reggae was born, she faced life's challenges and turned them into art. She went from living a life with uncertain beginnings to becoming a respected artist and advocate. Basically, Rita was not just by Bob's side. She helped shape the sounds and spirit of reggae. That being said, you have heard the music, but have you ever wondered what life was like behind the scenes with Bob Marley before the world knew his name? The relationship spark? Bob and Rita met in Jamaica, and their connection grew quickly in their personal lives and music careers. Together, they raised 3 children, along with several others from Bob's relationships outside their marriage. Their love story plays a central role in the new movie Bob Marley, One Love, directed by Reynaldo Marcus Green. Kingsley Ben-Adir plays Bob Marley, and Lashana Lynch brings Rita Marley to life on screen. Rita shared how she first met Bob in her memoir from 2004, No Woman, No Cry, My Life with Bob Marley. As a teenager, Rita sang in a group called the Soulettes. They provided background vocals for singers and bands, including Bob's Wailers group. Every day, the Wailers walked past Rita's house to a recording studio called Studio One. The studio was owned by music producer Clement Coxone Dodd. Because the band passed by so often, Rita got to know Bob and the other members. Eventually, the Soulettes began singing backup for the Wailers at the studio. Bob began training and rehearsing with Rita and the Soulettes at Clement Dodd's suggestion. In a few short months, this Robbie Marley, the shy guitarist, would become the love of my life, Rita wrote in her memoir. Later on, Rita joined Bob Marley and the Wailers as a backup singer. She became part of a powerful vocal trio called the I-Threes, along with Marcia Griffiths and Judy Mowat. At that time, Rita already had a daughter named Sharon. Sharon was born in November 1964 during a previous relationship with a former boyfriend. Sharon was around 5 months old when Bob first met her. Rita said she was still in contact with her ex, but Bob told her she needed to end that connection. When Bob and Rita got married, he adopted Sharon as his own. On February 10, 1966, Bob and Rita got married. Rita was 19 years old, and Bob had just turned 21. They exchanged vows at the office of the Justice of the Peace in Jamaica. They didn't have expensive clothes or a prominent place to celebrate, only the support of friends and family who believed in them. Coxone Dodd, the producer who had believed in Bob's talent from the start, bought Bob a black suit and shoes for the wedding. Rita's aunt carefully sewed her wedding dress and veil by hand. Shortly after they said their vows, Bob left Jamaica and traveled to Wilmington, Delaware. There, he worked at the DuPont Hotel to help support his mother. While Bob was away, Rita kept their music alive. She kept singing, and her cousin Constantine Walker stepped in to fill Bob's spot with the Wailers. But not everyone was happy about the marriage. Bob's mother, Cedella, found out about the wedding after it had already happened. Worried, she sent her sister to check on where Rita was living. The house was small and simple, with thin cardboard walls decorated with magazine pages. It was far from the comfortable home the family had hoped for. On top of that, Rita already had a child from a previous relationship. This didn't sit well with Bob's American relatives, who worried it would cause problems for Bob's future. Even with all the disapproval, Bob stood his ground. He would not give up on the life and love he had chosen. His family in the United States tried everything to pull him away, introducing him to other women, hoping he would forget Rita, and reminding him constantly of the opportunities and luxuries that could be his if he simply stayed in America. But Bob's heart was not swayed. After 8 long months, he returned to Jamaica. His mother was shocked. For her, and for many others, America was the dream, a land of promise, money, comfort, and escape from the island's struggles. To her, Bob's choice was almost unthinkable. Why would her son walk away from all that, just to return to hardship in Kingston? Why would he trade the better life for a woman and an uncertain future in music? She could not understand that for Bob, Rita was not simply a woman he loved. She was the anchor of his destiny and the partner of his calling. Back in Jamaica, Rita didn't waste a moment. To survive, music had to move from being a passion to becoming their lifeline. Together with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, they formed a small but determined circle. The 4 of them spent endless hours in the studio, writing songs, layering harmonies, and recording tracks that carried the heartbeat of Jamaica. The air in those small rooms was thick with smoke, sweat, and creativity. While Bob poured himself into the lyrics and the melodies, Rita carried a different weight. She became the manager, the marketer, the distributor, and often the breadwinner. She cycled across Kingston's hot, crowded streets with stacks of vinyl records strapped to her back, her determination burning more sizzling than the tropical sun. She knocked on doors at radio stations, begged DJs to give their music a spin, and placed records in the hands of anyone who would listen. She tried to convince store owners to stock their sound from shop to shop, often facing rejection but refusing to stop. Their life together in those days was far from glamorous. They lived in a cramped single room that doubled as a tiny music shop. Facing the bustling street, the little space was both home and workplace. They built a small cashier's booth with scrap wood and wire to sell 7-inch vinyl records. On the best days, Rita might sell 25 records, her face glowing with hope. On the slower days, just a handful, barely enough for a meal. Yet, through it all, she never gave up. When the streets quieted at night, Bob and Rita would sit together in that small room, planning their next move. They dreamed aloud of a future where their songs would echo through Kingston and across the oceans. Though they had no fame or fortune, what they had was fire, an unshakable belief in their gift and in each other. And Rita, with every pedal stroke through the crowded streets and every record handed over, kept that fire alive. The breakup. On August 23, 1967, they welcomed their first child, a daughter named Cedella Marley. She was born in Kingston. After Cedella's birth, Sharon became the proud big sister, a role she very much enjoyed, Rita shared in her memoir. Then, on October 17, 1968, their son, David Nesta Marley, was born. The world would later come to know him as Ziggy Marley. Ziggy was born at home, inside Rita's aunt's house. She delivered him without going to a hospital, surrounded by family. Without a proper kitchen, Rita cooked their meals outside by the doorway, using a small coal fire that was tricky to light and even harder to keep burning. With 2 little kids and very little space, every night felt like a struggle. When tensions ran high or dinner was late, Bob and Rita would often argue. Sometimes those fights got loud, and occasionally they even turned physical. But when Bob raised his hand, Rita stood her ground just as fiercely. After the arguments, Bob usually softened. When they moved to New York, their relationship hit new hurdles. The music executives thought Bob's fans wouldn't respond well if they knew he was married. So, Bob was pressured to keep their marriage a secret. Rita discovered this hard when she read a newspaper where Bob called her "my sista" and denied they were married. He said she only had the Marley name for music's sake. Beyond the emotional neglect and infidelity, Rita also endured physical and verbal abuse during their marriage, a painful and often hidden part of their relationship. Both Bob Marley's former manager, Don Taylor, and Rita herself spoke about violent episodes, including one where a hotel room was severely damaged after a brutal argument. One of the most disturbing details came from Rita's own words. She revealed that Bob once forced her into sexual activity against her will. Around that time, Bob was also involved with other women. 2 of them became pregnant, giving birth just weeks after Stephen, Bob's 3rd child with Rita, was born. Robert Marley, also known as Robbie, was born on May 16, 1972. His mother is Pat Williams. Just a few days later, on May 19, 1972, another son named Rohan Anthony Marley was born. His mother is Janet Hunt. I was distraught at first to learn about all this, though it's common in Jamaica, Rita shared in her book. But since then, I've come to love both of these boys, and to think of them as my sons. According to Rita, she and Bob understood their relationship and how things worked between them. Bob went on to have several more children with other women. In 1973, he welcomed a daughter named Karen Marley with Janet Bowen. 2 years later, he had a son named Julian Ricardo. Marley with Lucy Pounder in 1975. Then in 1976, he had another son named Kai Manny Marley with Anita Belnavis. In 1978, his youngest son, Damian Marley, also known as Junior Gong, was born to Cindy Breakspear. Rita also had a relationship with Jamaican soccer player Owen Stewart, known as Ital Taki. Together, they had 2 daughters. Stephanie Marley was born in 1974, and Bob later adopted her. Their second daughter, Sarita Stewart, was born in 1985. In her memoir, Rita talked about how her relationship with Taki began. We had a lot in common, so eventually I found myself attracted to him as well as grateful for his attention, and we developed a relationship that I thought was normal, she said. Before things became romantic, Rita explained that Taki showed her kindness and support because he noticed how Bob treated her and how their marriage was changing. The next time he went off to London, just about 1973, it was quite obvious that he'd started having women right in my face, Rita said about Bob. After that, Rita gave Bob a clear ultimatum. She told him that if he planned to keep seeing other women, they would no longer have a sexual relationship. Despite having romantic relationships outside the marriage, Bob and Rita stayed married until he passed away. Reflecting on the women Bob was involved with, Rita wrote, "I guess the way I saw it was that he was not the man for their lives, but their man for a time. I never made friends with them. I didn't have to. I tried to train myself to think of Bob as a good, loving brother, more so than a real husband, and made my peace with the situation," Rita added in her memoir. Despite the ups and downs in their marriage, Rita said that Bob remained a loving father and friend. On December 3, 1976, just 2 days before a concert, both Bob and Rita were shot in Kingston. The attack shocked many, especially since it happened so close to a highly anticipated performance. Bob, Rita, and the band were rehearsing at Bob's home on 56 Hope Road, preparing for the Smile Jamaica Peace Concert. That evening, Rita left to attend a rehearsal with a drama group she was involved in. While she was sitting in her car, 7 armed men suddenly stormed the house. Rita was shot in the head while inside her vehicle. Bob, who was in the kitchen at the time, was shot in his chest and arm. Both of them survived and eventually recovered. Remarkably, they took the stage at the Smile Jamaica concert 2 days later. The shooting happened shortly after Cindy Breakspear, one of Bob's girlfriends, was crowned Miss World in 1976. After the concert, Rita and the children moved to a safer place, while Bob chose to self-exile to England, where Cindy was living. While there, he worked on and developed the famous Exodus album. Rita later joined him and contributed to the project. When Bob and Cindy were dating, Rita said she and Bob had grown into a more friendly, casual relationship. They could talk openly about his other relationship because, as she explained, the wife and husband thing could have gone into a divorce long before. So, we had overcome that, although we still maintained our relationship as the primary one, Rita wrote in her memoir. Another thing I'll say for Bob is that he never allowed any of these women to act disrespectfully to me, Rita added. On May 11, 1981, Bob died of cancer in Miami. He was 36 years old. It was a rare type called acral lentiginous melanoma. It first appeared in the big toe of his right foot in 1977 and eventually spread throughout his body. In her memoir, Rita credited a German doctor named Joseph Issels with keeping Bob alive more than 6 months longer than doctors expected. When Bob's health did not improve, he was flown to Miami to spend his remaining time with Rita and their family. Bob's passing was a downfall for me, Rita said. He was my strength, my man, my first heart. Even though Bob was very successful during his life, his demise in 1981 sparked a lot of legal fights. These fights involved his wife Rita Marley, his children, old business partners, and record companies. One big problem was that Bob never made a will. When he passed away, his estate was worth about $30 million. Many arguments broke out because there was no clear plan for who should take care of or inherit his things. People fought over who owned his music, who should get royalty payments, and who had rights to his creative work. Right after Bob passed away, the courts in Jamaica put a company called Mutual Security Merchant Bank and Trust Company Limited in charge of managing his estate. However, this caused trouble. Rita and Bob's children disagreed with many decisions made by the company running the estate. One of the most significant issues was when Bob's assets were sold to an American company for only $8,200,000. The family thought this price was way too low. At first, the courts in Jamaica did not support the family's complaints, so they took the case to the Privy Council in the United Kingdom. The council agreed with the family. It canceled the sale and said the estate should be advertised more widely to find its actual value in the market. This was a big win for the Marley family and helped protect Bob's legacy from being taken over quickly by outside companies. But one of the most serious and troubling parts of this long legal battle involved accusations against Rita Marley herself. Court records and reports said Rita was accused of forging Bob Marley's signature on papers. These papers supposedly transferred ownership of some of his companies in the British Virgin Islands to her before he passed away. Those companies brought in a lot of royalty and were considered part of Bob's property that should have gone into his estate. The documents were backdated to make it look like Bob had signed them in 1978, well before his demise. The goal was to keep those assets out of the estate. Bob's lawyer and accountant were also part of this plan, which was meant to move millions of dollars in royalties away from the estate and the people who were supposed to get them. Ultimately, the lawyer and the accountant were found guilty of fraud and conspiracy. Rita Marley admitted her part in the scheme and was removed from any control over the estate. Despite this significant setback, Rita deeply protected Bob Marley's legacy. Along with his children, she came up with a smart plan to regain control over the music assets. Knowing they did not have enough money to fight big companies, the family decided to give up the chance for quick money and instead take partial ownership of the estate. This way, they could stay involved in decisions about Bob's music and future earnings. Rita's strength in handling these legal battles and family issues has been seen as a big reason the Marley family stayed close and kept their cultural influence strong. But unfortunately, in September 2016, while attending an event in Miami, Florida, Rita suffered a stroke. This was a major turning point. The stroke affected her ability to move and speak, forcing her to step back from her active role in managing Bob's legacy and her charity work. During her recovery, she stayed out of the public spotlight for a while. She publicly appeared at an awards ceremony in Kingston in March 2019. She joined Marcia Griffiths and Judy Moat to receive a prestigious award from the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association. Besides the stroke, Rita has also struggled with other health issues like high blood pressure. Still, Rita remains an influential and respected figure in the reggae world and beyond. Where is Rita Marley? Now, to the world, Bob Marley was the magnet whose music brought people together. But behind the scenes, things between him and Rita were falling apart. The rumors about Bob's other relationships kept growing, and eventually, Rita stopped trying to hide the cracks in their marriage. She stepped out of the background and stopped defending something that no longer felt whole. With the media watching and the public guessing, Rita returned to music as her artist. That same year, she released her first solo album, Who Feels It Knows It, which featured the unforgettable single One Draw. This song became the first reggae track to hit #1 on the Billboard disco charts. She continued to build her solo career with albums like Harambe and We Must Carry On, which came out in 1992. That album earned her a Grammy nomination and blended political and social messages with powerful themes of love and strength. It also featured 4 songs written by Bob Marley, including 2 that had never been released before. Her sound was a mix of jazz, blues, soul, rhythm and blues, and reggae. Through her music, she stayed true to uplifting others and was rooted in purpose. Rita also became a significant force behind the scenes. She purchased Federal Records, Jamaica's first recording studio. It was the same place Bob had recorded his first song, Judge Not, in 1962. Rita transformed the space into Tough Gong Recording Studios, which became one of the country's largest and most respected studios. In 1986, Rita Marley turned Bob Marley's home into the Bob Marley Museum, preserving his legacy for the world to see. She is the founder and chairwoman of the Robert Marley Foundation, the Bob Marley Trust, and the Bob Marley Group of Companies, all dedicated to managing and protecting Bob's work and memory. Rita also dedicated herself to supporting the next generation of Marley artists. She was key in managing and producing music for the Melody Makers, a group of Bob's children. Under her guidance, they won Grammy Awards and continued spreading the Marley message to new audiences. In 2000, Rita started the Rita Marley Foundation. This is a non-governmental, non-profit, and non-political organization focused on fighting poverty and hunger in developing countries. The foundation mainly helps older adults and young people. It has awarded many scholarships to music students in Ghana, supporting the next generation of artists. The foundation also organizes the annual Africa Unite concerts. These events raise global awareness about issues facing Africa and work toward long-term solutions. Rita's compassion goes beyond music and activism. She adopted 35 children in Ethiopia and has helped more than 200 children at the Konkanuru Methodist School in Ghana. Rita's memoir pulls back the curtain. It reveals the love, the loyalty, and the painful truths most people never knew. It's raw and honest and might change how you see the man behind the music. Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more content like this. Before you go, kindly watch the other videos on your screen. Thanks for watching.